Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in to another night of The Tonight Show with Cooper Lyden. We got a great show lined up for you tonight. Let's forget about the deportations. Let's forget about the bombing of Iran. And let's have some fun. We got great guests. I'm skipping the monologue tonight. We're getting right to the guests because I'm so excited about them. We got a lot of guests to get to tonight. Our first one, absolutely hilarious. He's a comedian based in Los Angeles. He has specials on YouTube. Check it out right now. He's doing 10 minutes tonight. If you're seeing this today, he's doing 10 minutes tonight. Give it up, everybody, for Shane Bianchi. Give it up.
Wow. Oh, it's great to be here, everybody. Am I supposed to do stand-up?
No, take a seat.
No, take a seat. I'll do the stand-up to close it out.
Yeah, I mean, fans of the, obviously we got a lot of fans who nationwide show.
Yeah.
It's a staple of the TV. But any fans of the show have, of course, seen you do stand-up. You've absolutely crushed it. I mean, people love you.
Oh, yeah. Around L.A., we got lots of people chanting, Sean, which isn't my name.
Right.
But they... yeah.
Yes! Man, this guy's funny. I literally can't stop laughing when he's on the show. I had to be committed to a psychiatric ward for 3 days, couldn't talk to my wife or kids, didn't even want to. I kept watching Shane clips because he came on the show. He cracked me up so hard. I wanted him back every single week. They said we can't do that. I'm so glad you're back this week. Give it up for Shane Bianchi.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was called to the couch for the first time, it really, it changed my career. So I do want to thank you, Cooper.
Wow.
It's been big for me. And the sitcom I got,
Really? Yeah. So you got the new sitcom. It's called Shane's House. Tell us a little bit.
Oh, well, it's, it's Shane's House is, we run this rundown house. So we got into repair, me and my 3 black sons and my Asian wife. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Well, yeah, I don't know. This
How
guy,
insane.
Connor came up to me, Connor's our showrunner, he's
right.
like the co-creator.
Love
Came up to me, he said, I have this idea for you. I think you'd be perfect for, you got kind of a little bit of an ethnic flair for a white guy. Pretty cool for a white guy.
People love that about you.
Yeah,
Where do you get that from?
I just am a big fan of Andrew Schultz.
Yes,
Big fan.
Andrew Schultz, he is a big friend of the show. We can't have him on because our audience isn't ready for what he does.
Oh, yeah.
That is non-natural fertilization of his wife.
Yeah.
But big friend of the show. We're a huge fan of him. Do you get a lot of your inspiration from him?
Yeah, I watch his podcast. I've been on it a couple times. It's a lot of fun. I do ask Schultz, maybe keep down a little bit when I'm on it because I do have a lot of fans.
He goes pretty crazy.
He does go pretty wild.
He's out of his fucking mind sometimes. I think sometimes the shit he says is fucked up and shouldn't be said.
But he still says it because it's funny.
But he does say it, and
it's funny. It's like Family Guy,
It is.
It's a lot like Family Guy.
We love to laugh here too.
Yeah, the thing is with jokes is, you don't always have to agree with what's said,
What's your favorite thing to watch on YouTube?
I'm a huge fan of Family Guy, as I said. Huge Family Guy fan.
Seth MacFarlane, Brian the dog.
He plays Brian the dog. It's really funny.
He does it
you wouldn't even know this, but he plays Peter as well, because he doesn't use his own voice.
Is that?
That's true. He plays Peter. So, yeah.
Are you being serious?
I'm being serious, and it's
Clap if you knew that. I guess I'm the fucking who didn't know fucking shit about Family Guy, even though I watch a lot. I watch a lot of it.
Yeah.
We'd had Seth MacFarlane on a few months ago. I talked to that guy for fucking 30 minutes.
And there's no way of knowing just talking to him that this is the Peter Griffin.
You talk to him, and he's a completely normal guy.
And Peter Griffin is a complete fucking lunatic.
How can he
killed
be
kids, killed children?
Yeah, I would not support Peter for mayoral race, that's for sure.
Well, some of our mayoral candidates have killed children. And
I don't want to get into the genocidal Zoran. Kill every single Jewish person in New York City.
You had Zoran on the Tonight Show recently. You asked him how could you hate Jewish people so much?
Yeah, one of the judges from the Nuremberg trial is still alive, so we flew him from Tel Aviv, and that's where he lives now. And we had him come in and pretty much just interrogate this guy about what his real plans for the city were. And he had no answers. If he is elected, Jews will die. To every Jewish person in New York City, I am telling you, evacuate New York as soon as possible. Zoran is a genocidal maniac, and that is a Tonight Show guarantee.
Yeah, and the deal with that is, it does really show where a lot of the left is these days, where they don't care. They don't even give a shit what's going to happen to the Jewish people.
And that's that biting
and it's
humor.
kind of...
Yeah.
It's kind of like that's the thing, the wokeness. You go far enough, you become the bigot.
Well, because with this whole woke thing that's happened in the last few years, all of a sudden woke has birthed this group called the Palestinians, who before didn't exist. Before, what did we have? We had American industry, we had factories, we had shipping, we had welders, and now people would rather sell their house and give it to an illegal immigrant from Palestine, which is a made-up country that doesn't exist, that Zoran invented as an excuse to murder the Jewish people of New York, and that's why us at the Tonight Show and the New York Times are telling people to evacuate New York City.
I've heard this,
and you've been very vocal about this.
I have been very vocal that Zoran was invented by Antifa.
Mm-hmm.
Antifa, strong critics of Israel. Yeah, I mean,
it's laughable.
It is incredibly.
It's laughable.
By round of applause, who here hates Palestine? Wow. Okay. Yeah, we got a couple people on our side here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
that's the kind of. This is definitely a safe place for democracy and the LGBTQ community, which was invented by Israel, because that's the only
invented
country.
in a lab.
Yes,
in Israel.
It's the only country in the world where you're allowed to be gay. And now with Zoran getting elected, possibly in New York, it'll probably be outlawed in New York and across the country, people are saying.
People are calling Zoran the homophobic mayor. He's going to turn New York City into homophobia city, which a lot of people are very against because we already have a homophobia city, Palestine.
Yeah. It is the center of homophobia, and I call Zoran Deadpool.
Oh,
because if he's elected, there's going to be a pool of dead Jews in the backyard of every New York City home, throughout Long Island, throughout Manhattan, throughout the Bronx, throughout everywhere. The famous backyards of New York City will run red with the blood of the Levant.
And when you call them Deadpool, you are of course not referring to the hilarious Marvel character that we all appreciate.
Can you imagine if we had Deadpool on this fucking show?
You've had Ryan Reynolds on. You've had Ryan, and that's a funny guy. I'm a comedian, and that's a funny guy.
I love comedy. People ask me my favorite comedians. I tell them definitely Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling, and I think Ashton Kutcher.
Oh, Ashton's funny. You remember
Punk'd? Like that.
You remember Punk'd? He would punk us.
People didn't know what was happening on Punk'd.
You were on Punk'd.
Kind of how I feel.
You were on Punk'd. He made that. So you remember you were supposed to meet up with a 5-year-old in that cafe, and it wasn't a 5-year-old.
Yeah, that was a dark period in my life,
and you really got punked,
I've talked to therapists, counselors,
and let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that. People are here to laugh. They're here to hear about my new sitcom.
2003 was a wild time, I think, for everybody. And now I have a loving.
The towers fell down.
They did. Again, in 2003, they rebuilt them after 2001. They fell down. A lot of people forget that. But now I do have a loving 67-year-old wife. I'm 43 myself. We're very happy. She's Justin Trudeau's wife's sister. Anyway. But I was punked, and unfortunately, that clip is still on YouTube. But I am happy to have this job.
It does get taken down pretty often by the network, which is pretty nice. Which is pretty nice of them.
We do try.
It's still on the Internet Archive. They've been trying, to take down the whole Internet Archive.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of books on there that maybe people aren't supposed to read.
No, there's a lot of books people shouldn't read.
We have one in the studio today for the burning, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine.
We had a couple. This is, we love to do fun segments on the show. Let me just grab a couple books. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, I didn't grow up in Nashville, Tennessee. That's a big misconception. That's a character I play on stage. I was originally born in the Pacific Palisades, which, as you guys might know, has burned to the ground, which luckily my family, their house is safe. They hired a bunch of the prisoners that were fighting the fires. They hired them specifically to make sure that their house was protected.
So...
Oh.
We've been doing this fun segment on the show called Funny Books. And pretty much these are books that the producers find that are kind of laugh riots. If you love satire, if you love stuff that is just supposed to be ridiculous, if you're a Monty Python fan, stuff that you read or watch and you say, there's no way this guy ain't pulling my chain. So these are some of the funniest comedians in the world writing just the absolute silliest books. So we started off with this one. It's called 3 Worlds, Memoirs of an Arab Jew by this comedian Avi Shlaim. And have you read this?
I haven't. I've heard good things. I've heard it's kind of a laugh riot.
I'll tell you a little bit. So pretty much it's about a fella. He's born in Iraq in around, I think around 1930, and pretty much talks about how he was a Jewish guy in Iraq. So how's he not dead? Okay.
Oh, was he LGBT?
Yeah, so he makes up this fake community of Iraqi Jews that thrived for hundreds of years in Iraq and were a treasured part of the community until he says the Zionists, who are the angels of earth, came in and committed, such as the Stern Gang and the Irgun, committed acts of terror, such as like bombing local synagogues, to scare the Jews out of Iraq and into Israel. And how these Zionists, once again, this is an absolute laugh riot. I mean, you're reading it the whole time. People are just cracking up right now, just hearing about it.
Just hearing about
Talks
stuff
about
like that.
how the Zionists essentially stoked so much anti-Semitism in Iraq that it drove Jews out from a homeland of theirs, and then it became that the only safe place they could really live in was, of course, Israel. So if you are looking for a lighthearted, silly satire, fun on a Saturday, read it to your kids. This is absolutely hilarious.
A real great satire of the Middle East, their barbaric customs, their barbaric people. And, you know, the best satire, I think, punches up. And I would call this, it punches up at these oppressive Arab communities that really want to bring down the Jewish people. Who were, you know, if you were making fun of Jewish people, that'd be punching down.
Yes.
And you were making fun of LGBT communities, that'd be punching down. And this novel finds a way to find the humor,
find the funny,
and growing up Jewish, and the idea that maybe a Jewish person would grow up in a place that's notoriously hates them.
I mean, all Iraq does is make swords and kill Jews. That's the way it's always been from the beginning of time, and no Jews have ever existed there without persecution. So, I mean, the very claim is hilarious. This is another guy. This is a little thicker, but this is one of my favorite satirists, one of the funniest guys out right now. His name is Ilan Pappé. He's such a dedicated satirist that he actually calls himself a historian.
Oh, yeah, they call him the Andy Kaufman of history.
He's really out there. I mean, this is
a more transgressive piece of satire than
this is like 600 pages long.
Yeah.
And it's literally a laugh riot the entire time.
Fans of Catch-22 might find it pretty funny.
If you like Catch, you'll love Lobbying for Zionism on Both Sides of the Atlantic by Ilan Pappé. And pretty much he makes up this fake story that before the establishment of the State of Israel, there were many groups lobbying for the establishment of Israel, and how today they have grown to become one of the most powerful lobbies in the world, specifically in America, but starting in Britain, and how any of the Arab lobbies really have no power up against them, when of course we know that isn't true because a genocidal dictator named Zoran just got elected.
We all know.
So if that was true, you know, how could that happen? It's an absolutely hilarious book. And it's really funny, you know, it's really funny. And you have to read it.
Well, yeah, it's interesting about the Zoran election is the Jewish people, they have a saying, never again. And it seems to me that Antifa has a saying, fuck yeah, we're doing it again.
Every day until the end of time, fuck yeah, we're doing it again. It's really, and if there's Antifa in the audience, they should be beheaded.
There are a couple Antifa in the back. They're chained up though.
Clap if you want them killed.
Yes.
Give it up for that. This is an American satirist.
Oh, they're poking him.
Our first American satirist. Two guys, really funny guys, John J. Mersheimer and Stephen M. Walt. This is one of the funniest books in the canon of satirical geopolitical satire, art, books, whatever you want to call it. The Israel Lobby. So it's a little more specific than lobbying for Zionism on both sides of the Atlantic. It talks about the lobbying groups, such as AIPAC, such as the ZOA, such as the Christians United for Israel, that essentially lobby for Israel and are apparently the reason that all Congress people, no matter what, on both sides, support Israel unequivocally. And what's so funny about this is, of course, everybody in Congress supports Israel, and even if they're a senator from fucking Missouri, go to, kiss the Wailing Wall. What's funny about that is they do it because it's the right decision. What else would you do?
I've been to Israel multiple times. I have what I call gaycations, where I'm not a homosexual.
No.
But when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. And so when I'm in Israel, I have buckets of gay sex. Unprotected gay sex. Gay. Yes. And you know what one people don't know about Israel is that even the children want to have gay sex. So you'll have sex with the children.
Yes.
And you've done that numerous times.
Anytime I go to Israel, that's what I do because it's good and people like it. Give it up for that. Thank you.
Sometimes kids can consent, and that's a thing that you learn in Israel.
What's nice about Israel is that it's the only country in the world where kids can consent to sex.
Yes.
And we love that. So this is actually my all-time favorite. I'm literally...
Even the title is funny.
It's called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. Now, how do you ethnically cleanse a country that's never existed? It's like trying to erase a black hole, or you know what I mean?
It's like trying to take out the trash and it's empty.
Yeah, and you laugh because they got these, probably AI, just pictures of fake people taking fake stuff out of a fake place that they never lived, and, if they did live there, they probably killed a bunch of people to live there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So this
probably gay people.
Essentially, it talks about how the brave war fought by the IDF in 1948 against oppressive Arab countries was actually a genocide, and that an ethnic, not a genocide, but an ethnic cleansing had been committed. I know. I mean, it's.
Me and Ryan Reynolds, one of the funniest guys alive, do get up together. We have kind of a book club where we read these sort of satirical books, and we just have a good laugh about the idea of Palestine existing.
Ryan Reynolds, I love talking to him because you say the word Palestine, then the guy will just laugh.
And, he does have like kind of a snarky, it's like Deadpool in real life. He's kind of snarky, where he's like, oh, Palestine being a real country? Who wrote that? Stan Lee? And you laugh because Stan Lee writes ridiculous characters, like superheroes.
Yeah.
If you really think of Israel and Palestine as kind of like that Israel is the Fantastic Four and that Palestine is Doctor Doom, then you kind of start to get it a little bit better.
This is... I found this one absolutely hilarious. So he just makes up these fake villages that never existed and fake stories about what happened to him. So he says, Surin was noted as a fine example of the collective system of land sharing to which the villagers adhered dating back to the Ottoman period here and survived both the capitalization of the local agriculture and the Zionist drive for land. It boasted 3 rich bustans, gardens with fruit trees, and olive groves, which spread over 9,000 cultivated dunam of land out of 17,000. The land belonged to the village as a whole, and the size of the family determined its share in the crops and territory. So it's like acting like, Neanderthals could actually cultivate a land and actually live there. And then this part, it makes me laugh every time I read it. It says, within a few short hours, this microcosm of religious coexistence and harmony was laid waste. The villagers did not put up a fight. The Jewish troops gathered the Muslims of both clans and Christians together and ordered them to start crossing the River Jordan to the other side. They then demolished the mosque, the church, and the monastery, together with all the houses. Soon all the trees in the bustans had withered away and died.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be really funny to come up with that.
Yeah, and
this book is just filled with fake villages, fake people. I mean,
I do want to point out, how many of these books were written by Jewish people?
3 out of the 4 of these.
Wow, interesting.
Elon Pape is a Jewish born in Israel, actually served in the IDF as a young man and then moved to Britain to study history and then started in terror. He's part of kind of the new historians of Israel. There's a class of historians.
Satirist.
Well, satirist, of course. I mean, that's what we're talking about. But he's a part of a class of historians in Israel called the New Historians, who sort of seek to tell the sort of true story of the foundation of Israel so the country itself can reckon with that. Avi Shleim is part of the New Historian class. He's a Jewish
New satirist.
Yeah, he's a Jewish man born in Iraq who then had to move to Israel. And then these guys, John Mearsheimer and Stephen M. Wald, they are not Jewish. They are geopolitical realists. John Mearsheimer is sort of the premier geopolitical realist. He's a great guy to listen to, especially in the wake of the war in Iran. They were called...
If you're trying to have a laugh.
Yeah.
If you like, like podcasts that are funny, then that's a good one to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, anything with John Mearsheimer,
it's a laugh riot.
He talks about he talks about this idea of the liberal hegemonic order, which is the idea of American governments believing that democracy is the greatest system of government, and therefore the use of violence is justified in trying to implement it in other countries, and that's why we get into so many wars. And he's trying to say that that's why we went into the Middle East, when it's obvious that actually you can implement democracy and freedom through violence. We've done it before in Afghanistan. It's a thriving, beautiful community of free people who we saved from absolute sheer destruction.
And we love our veterans.
Yeah.
We love our U.S. veterans.
And, this was a very seminal book in work about, satirical ideas of a lobby for Israel. They were called anti-Semitic for it because a lot of people view anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism, which, of course, it is. Everybody knows that. Obviously, Zionism being a national cause, not actually tied to religion. It's just, I can't talk about it without just, y'all feel me.
Let's go into our commercial, because we kind of have a sponsor today, don't we?
Yeah, we do have a sponsor. So this is
New Brew. It's a euphoric seltzer. So if you're having a tough day at work, you're pissed off about Zoran, you're trying to walk the streets and a fucking guy throws dog turds at you or something because you don't put up with the BS,
right.
Because New York's a war zone.
It's an absolute war zone. I mean, we record this live in New York, and outside there are protesters on the street who, if they got through these doors, would kill every single one of us given the chance. You have to realize that as an American united people, that they are trying to kill us. And I do not work for the deep state neoconservatives. I do not work for any intelligence agency. I am a free-thinking person on the largest network owned by Comcast.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Any free-thinking person would agree with you. And if you don't agree with you, then you're probably being fed lies.
Well, you're asking to die.
Yeah.
There's really no other way to say it. It's either Zoran's going to kill all of you, or you believe a lie trotted out by now the Nazi left. That's what we're calling them on the show.
The Nazi left. I love that. Love that.
Every single leftist is a Nazi, and if you do not support our peacetime president, Donald Trump, then you are really just asking to die. And I hope every day as a resident of New York City that Donald Trump marches in Marines and troops and shoots dead anyone on the streets trying to oppose his peaceful regime.
I would concur. I would very much concur. I mean, I try to go to my, one of my multiple apartments in the Upper East Side.
Mm-hmm. Rich guy.
Well, if you just, if you're a comedian with a sitcom network deal.
Do you have a girlfriend?
I have a wife, actually.
You have a wife.
I have a wife, yeah.
That is wonderful.
And whether or not I have a girlfriend, I'm not saying, but I am saying, you got the sort of power I do, Monogamy isn't really a thing. Monogamy is not really a thing.
Monogamy was invented by the Nazi left to keep you trapped in a cycle of abuse.
Well, I will say about monogamy, my wife is monogamous. So,
well, of course, you can't trust a woman with a polyamory, but a man, of course, with self-restraint, discipline, and an adherence to God and his principles can use that effectively to cleanse his urges and be a successful, productive husband for his wife.
well, a lot of people, I'm kind of more of a philosophical kind of polyamory. I kind of try to think about that sort of stuff. So when I, have sex, unprotected sex with multiple partners,
Yes.
I make sure to get tested once every year.
Yeah, as long as you're getting tested 1 to 3 years after having sex as many times as you want with multiple partners, completely unprotected, then you are taking the essential care that you need. And so that
I
is
have
why,
all of the vaccines.
So that's why us on The Tonight Show love New Brew. New Brew is Kratom. If you haven't heard of Kratom, it interacts slightly with opioid receptors. So it does not get you as high as something like morphine or heroin, but it does get you a similar buzz to that. So if you would like to believe that you're sober, but don't really want to be, I would suggest doing Kratom.
I mean, we've walked around New York City. We've seen the, horrific homeless problem of these guys choosing to be homeless.
Well, they're imported by Antifa.
Yeah, and if you've seen these guys lying on the street kind of nodding off or whatever, and you kind of want to feel like what that has to feel like, but you don't want to lose your penthouse on the Upper East Side.
Big old penthouse.
Then New Brew's a great alternative to heroin.
Yes. I used to shoot heroin in between my toes in the Bowery. And I had a lot of fun.
The Bowery.
That was around the punk time. I did have a few girlfriends. They should be graduating from high school by now. Love them. Kisses. But I used to love heroin. I would do it all the time. I would literally, here's how much I liked heroin. I would spend pretty much every day on the streets trying to get it. I would walk around, I would steal pieces of wire and sell them to scrap yards that didn't really care where it came from.
Yeah.
And as soon as I had enough money for the minimal amount of heroin I needed to not feel sick, I would go to a man who lived in a pretty nice place, actually, in Manhattan. I would take a bus, and I was sweating on the train.
Yeah.
I'd get to his apartment, I'd get the heroin, and I would shoot up right outside of his door. He'd kick me out a million times saying, "You can't shoot up outside here." That's how much I loved heroin. I would do that every single day.
And you grew up in Manhattan.
I grew up in Manhattan, right by Central Park in a tall building, but I had it tough. My father, he did some realty stuff. He sold the plaza to Donald Trump, whatever. But he, we weren't.
You were like middle class.
We were like middle class.
Yeah, and I kind of had that same experience growing up. My dad owned a large share in Warner Brothers. I grew up in the Pacific Palisades in a nearly 4-story house.
He was a working class filmmaker.
Yeah, he's like a working class. Perfect. Yeah. I would say middle class. A lot of people maybe would disagree with working class, but I would say we were lower middle class.
You had enough.
We were comfortable.
Yes.
In the Pacific Palisades.
But you still learned work ethic.
I did, yes.
And did you ever like to shoot or smoke or snort just
in the
heroin?
Pacific Palisades, we weren't really into that sort of riff-raff. We were kind of more into cocaine. There was a little bit of cocaine.
That's a little more West Coast.
Yeah.
New York in the 70s was a little cocaine. But definitely when I was growing up, we loved Lou Reed. We would shoot heroin and we would listen to the Velvet Underground.
Oh yeah, very
and we would talk about how Reagan and trickle down economics was correct.
Well, yeah, I mean you've seen what it's done. The only person that disagrees with trickle down economics are the Antifa given homeless people to all of our major Americans. I mean,
who are imported from Iran. They're not U.S. citizens. They're legal citizens.
I grew up in L.A., and we're in New York right now, and New York is a war zone. If New York's a war zone,
yes.
If New York's a war zone, L.A. is a nuclear apocalypse.
L.A.'s Mad Max.
Yes, I was. I went to downtown L.A. The other day.
Did you lose an arm?
Oh man, I mean, as you guys might know, I have concealed carry, which you can't really do in New York, but you guys,
No, and it's because our government wants us to die on the streets with the imported Irani Antifa soldiers and the fake homeless people, which are also from Iran, funded by Antifa. You should be allowed to open carry. And there should be a stand your ground rule in New York. Everybody who watches the show knows that that is what I stand for and have always stood for.
Yes. And in LA, most people know I live in a penthouse in the Upper East Side of New York. But I do own property in Ventura County in LA. And that is my zip code.
One of the few Republican enclaves close enough to Los Angeles.
And so I am able to easily get a concealed carry permit that I do carry around the city of Los Angeles if I'm unlucky enough to have to be there. Especially downtown LA.
One time, whoever set up this mic is going to get fired tonight. I want you to know that you're going to be out on the fucking street shooting up heroin like I was in the Bowery in
Daisy?
2003.
Daisy, you're done.
Was it you?
It was Daisy.
You think you're funny.
Anyway, all right.
We love you, Daisy, but seriously. I mean,
seriously, though.
Seriously,
I do like that she provides head to, she provides oral sex.
Well, it's all she's worth. So,
yeah.
This is going to fall again. But listen, one time I had to fly into LA because I was doing an ICE fundraising event. We were trying to raise money for the proud soldiers that are trying to democratize our country from the droves of Antifa imported.
Can we get a round of applause for ICE?
Thank you so much. I went in there to do a fundraiser for these. I consider them holy crusaders that are trying to rid our country.
Not only holy crusaders, but friends.
Friends, heroes. Yeah. I interview an ICE agent every other interview on the show out of principle. And I consider it a holy crusade against Antifa-funded and imported Iranian invaders. They are not from Mexico. They are not from South America. They are, in fact, from Iran. And they are terrorists that are seeking to destroy American values. And so ICE is trying to rid them of them. And I was doing a fundraiser for ICE in Los Angeles. And we flew into LAX. I looked outside and I said, I'm not stepping out of this plane. And in fact, nobody on this plane is stepping out of this plane. And I took out a gun, as I have a right to do as a New York City American. I told the pilot, we're going back to New York City. I kept everybody on the flight. We flew back to New York City. And all those people are still alive today.
Wow. So they would say you're kind of a hero. Oh. Yeah, Daisy's getting fired.
Daisy's, let's give it up for Daisy. Yeah, let's give it up for her being kicked out onto the street where she will have to sell.
Let's get Daisy off right now.
You'll be lucky to have a cheese sandwich in 3 fucking days.
Yeah. I'm gonna as soon as we get off the show, I'm gonna give you $5 to let me have full sex with you.
You're gonna have to.
You're probably gonna have to. Really I mean,
or you're gonna become a fucking welfare queen that's taking my taxes that I pay off Park Avenue. But anyway,
they're beating her. They're beating her good.
Give it up for that. Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
We do have such a fun time
on the show.
Whenever you're on the show.
Yeah.
So in Shane's house, what are some of the values that we're talking about on that show?
Family values.
When is the show coming out?
It's coming out in 2 weeks. We have 22 episodes. We've already been renewed for a second season, which is pretty exciting. It hasn't even come out yet.
That's amazing.
They said that they're renewing it because they said this would be a great tool to, get people, agreeing with a lot of the stuff that's thought.
I've heard this. I read this little industry information. Give it up. I've heard that this is the first show that is fully funded by the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It is the first show funded fully by AIPAC. They usually fund congressional candidates and elections and things like that. But they have made their foray into television because your father, who was a producer, was very good friends with a lot of people that were part of that lobbying group. And now they've given you a shot to talk about comedy's legal again.
Oh, yeah. I do want to go a little bit into the themes of the show.
Yeah,
maybe
please.
A lot of people maybe if they don't immediately kind of understand. So the show is about me, my Asian wife, and my 3 black sons moving into a neighborhood in the south side of Chicago, which you guys might know because of liberal politics has descended into chaos.
It's an absolute war zone. If you step in there as a white man, you will be
killed.
The judge, jury, and executioner is the black teen in Chicago, and that is what Obama rang in, that they no longer have judges.
Notable Chicagoan Barack Obama.
He essentially elected the gangs of Chicago to be the leaders of the city.
Yes. And so the plot of the show is that we are... in one of the early episodes, we're taking this dilapidated home. It used to be, if you guys are fans of Chicago history, it used to be called the Robert Taylor Homes in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
You might be familiar. I don't know if it's still there, the buildings themselves, but we are taking the land themselves and building large, tenement style, buildings like project public housing.
And it's because those family homes had been overrun by gangs. It had essentially...
well, we're going to have a bunch of rules about who gets into the... First off, no sagging.
Mm-hmm.
No sagging at all.
Give it up for that.
Yeah, and...
Sagging is the sign of Hamas and terrorist groups, and really anybody seeking to destroy the nuclear family and American values.
No jewelry, which that does not apply to me.
Well, that, of course, is a Christian necklace.
Yes, and...
It's a Catholic necklace. It's a Catholic... It's a Cuban link. Cubans, notoriously Catholic, capitalist Christian, and you're expressing a love of Christ for that, so let's...
Anyway, we have all these rules to keep undesirables out. It's about 99.9%, the complex can be like 99.9% white.
Wow.
And we will be... we'll be buying a lot of different areas in the place. We'll be getting rid of a lot of the, people that lived there. You can kind of see a lot of the Israel-Palestine kind of... kind of maybe whatevers. And there's kind of a conflict between us and the gangs in the area, and
it's a holy war.
My three black sons will be kind of voices of reason, right. Because they're black themselves,
and they don't.
So they understand that a lot of what's happened to the community is not okay, and so they kind of are voices of reason.
And I've heard
amongst all of this, and within episode 3, it will. That area will become mostly white, and we'll be expanding to different parts of the south side of Chicago as the series goes along.
And I've heard that you actually got Candace Owens to be a head writer on the show. Is that true?
She's kind of the second up. Our head writer, of course, is Connor. Love Connor. Our showrunner, co-creator. He'll be, but Candace we do love Connor. It does make, he's never been on this, but it makes sense. You don't have writers on these shows. Nobody wants to hear from those guys.
Well, of course you can't have the establishment leftist writers that are writing.
Well, unlike Connor is not. He's a American. He's a proud American.
Well, yeah,
he's a proud American. He is from Tel Aviv. He was born and raised in Tel Aviv.
But he's American nonetheless. Same country.
Yeah, it's basically...
It's the America of the Middle East. Let's be clear about that.
I'm really excited for you guys to see how the story progresses. Eventually, we might take over the whole of Chicago. I don't know. We haven't gotten that far in the second season yet.
Right.
But by the end of the first season, it'll be a majority white area.
I love this show because it reminds me of a book that I grew up reading. My dad gave it to me as a young man, really inspired me to get into entertainment, called The Turner Diaries, which it's not what's happening directly, but it is real. And
so we do have actually a reference to The Turner Diaries in the show.
Really?
Yeah, episode title number 3 is The Day of the Rope. And if you guys are familiar with the book, you might have an idea of what might happen to some of these gang members, which a lot of them claim in the show to not be part of gangs, but that's kind of their trick.
Well, it's the same thing as calling a military base in Gaza a hospital. That's what you see in Chicago. Is you see, they're saying, it's low-income housing, when really it is a holdout for militarized gangs that have taken over Chicago. And it's very
because of Barack Obama.
It's very troubling to see this in real life, and it gives me some hope that at the very least we can have a show that can envision a future that is safe for citizens, for real hardworking Americans, and also that you can have great examples of diversity with your 3 black Republican sons.
Oh, yeah. The thing is about diversity that people don't talk about is diversity includes race, but it also includes thought. And there's amongst some members of some races, the diversity of thought doesn't really go that far.
Well, what I've always said is I want a diversity. I want all colors.
And you'll be very surprised, I've learned, of the homophobia of the South Side of Chicago.
Yes, but what I need is a unified thought. So if you would like to be, you can be black. But what must be not debated is support of the nuclear family, of Donald Trump as the president, of the fact that Israel and America's values are combined, that Iran is a homophobic state, that Palestine is a fake state. And that's really the true America, where sure, we fly all the colors, whether they are normal or gross, but what is true is our unification of thought. And what I like about your show is that it's creating that.
Yes, I think that within a couple years, we could maybe have an all-white Chicago, which it would be very nice. It's kind of a thing we're kind of working towards, maybe an all-white, all-Republican Chicago.
Right. And, I mean, that's why a lot of people nowadays with the woke like to talk about how things like that are racist or genocidal or have to do with ethnic cleansing, when really what we're just talking about is safety for Americans.
Yes, I would 100% agree with that. A lot of times people will accuse the policies of being racist.
Mm-hmm.
Which, do you mean racist or do you mean safe? And that's the question I have to ask all Americans.
It's a question I ask my daughter every single day. Now, you've been touring across the country as a stand-up comedian. Tell us a little bit about the race riots you're seeing, about the anti-Semitism, and about the Arab homophobia that runs rampant throughout this country due to Antifa insurgents.
Luckily, I have multiple bodyguards. Which is very helpful, especially when I go to the California cities.
Right.
The California, I mean, you think Chicago is bad? You think that's bad? Try walking around San Francisco or LA without being murdered.
Well, I've heard that in San Francisco and LA, the homeless people, who are, of course, Antifa imported insurgents from Iran, have been strapped with C4 and are exploding in front of small businesses and also in front of banks that help good people, such as Goldman Sachs.
They've been trying to blow up the VA, the VA, as we all know, has always done everything in their power to help all of our beautiful veterans. And my character in the show did serve in Afghanistan. And during a trip to Thailand, that's where he met his wife. So, I mean, there'll be, in my power, almost every other business will be a VA. And that's what I think we're kind of working towards. I mean, some people will have to be, denied claims and stuff like that.
Well, there's a lot of criminal businesses, especially.
There's a lot of people pretending to be veterans.
There's a lot of criminal businesses that have run for a long time, even in New York City, such as the Apollo, places in Los Angeles like Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. These are fronts for criminal organizations, for terrorist organizations, for Antifa imported Irani insurgents. And so your show imagines a future where veterans who have never been homeless, have never been forgotten by the government, are more protected than they are right now.
Yes. And there'll be, I don't know if you've ever been to a VA. I perform often at, what do they call those things, for veterans, they chill. The clubs for veterans.
Mm-hmm. A VFW.
VFW. I've been performing a lot at these VFWs, and what they've told me about the VAs of now is there will be guys that will show up missing limbs and will be denied coverage. And they have found out that a lot of these guys
fucking mad. Do you know how mad that makes me?
Well, what they found out is these guys missing limbs that are denied coverage were born without limbs and are trying to take our tax dollars. And they'll even dress up like veterans, and they will even have fake proof of them fighting in our great wars in the Middle East, our Great War in Vietnam.
Every war in the Middle East has been an absolute fucking success.
Yes. And part of the job of working at the VA is being able to find out these frauds. And the more mutilated, the more fucked up looking, more haggard they look. That's when they can tell that person wasn't actually in our beautiful, smart military.
It's funny you say that, because whenever I walk down the street and I see these guys in their fatigues, without legs, in wheelchairs, I always suspect that they are Antifa. And
I have solid proof from the veterans themselves that they are Antifa.
That's why I hate Forrest Gump, because the character of Lieutenant Dan as a veteran who comes back with no legs and is not taken care of by the government is a facsimile. It's a liberal facsimile. It was made up by leftist governments such as the dictatorship of Karen Bass in Los Angeles to essentially ruin American values and ruin the nuclear family. And everything else about the movie is completely true. Tons of people do what Forrest Gump did, rise up.
Which shows the American dream.
Yeah,
it just has a little bit of leftist Antifa propaganda.
Yes, Forrest Gump is essentially a completely true story that happens to many Americans, except this Lieutenant Dan character. And I've talked to a lot of producers, and they have told me, this is insider information, that the Lieutenant Dan character was written by a trans-Irani Antifa insurgent that was essentially implanted into the writer's room to spread liberal values that are seeking to destroy American values.
Yeah, and I have heard, which luckily for all of us, we have had him, they call him her, they have been executed. Since that movie has come out, they were executed.
That was an executive order by Donald Trump. It was within the first 36 hours of his second term, and we thank him so much for that.
Thank you, Donald Trump. And hopefully we'll be able to, execute a lot of these trans women, men,
right,
as Donald Trump goes further in the office. And get them out of our women's sports, which we're really into.
I have always cared a lot about high school and collegiate swimming and diving and certain field of the track and field variety events. And what I've seen happen in the last few years, I think, is tantamount to the events of Nazi Germany. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. I think it's an absolute genocide of biological female athletes. And what's happening today is one of the worst things we've ever seen. It's a genocide happening in front of our eyes, and they're trying to distract us from that genocide exacted by this trans idea by talking about a genocide in a fake country called Palestine. So you have to understand that when you hear about Palestine, when you hear about Israel, which is a real country, Palestine a fake one, talking about a genocide, what they're trying to do is distract you from the genocide of female athletes that are happening today. There would be no, I'm struggling to think of a female athlete because I'm such a big fan. There's a million floating around my head, but there would be no, fill in the blank.
Diane,
exactly.
If Diane,
if what's happening
Tabitha
today continues,
those are some great female athletes,
right? And it's something I follow quite closely, and I laugh, I scream in anger at my children about it. Very angry about it. It's something that's happening.
Here's the thing:
it's a genocide that's occurring.
My children are also kind of afraid of me, and I think I took them out of public schools because of this. Because the public school, you take them out of public schools because their friends, not only the teachers, but their friends are also spewing liberal woke BS.
And because Antifa Irani insurgents have essentially invaded the American public school system. And that's why you see a lot of people talking about greater funding for the schools. And the reason I don't pay my taxes is because they'll go to these schools which have become breeding grounds for Hamas, for Hezbollah, for the Houthis. and any school you see is essentially Iran. Is essentially a terrorist breeding ground. That's why I took my children out of it. That's why they drink raw milk. And it's why, I understand that your children fear you. What you have to understand as a parent, especially in America in times of war like this, domestic war, civil war, is that the relationship between the father and the child is that of fear.
Yes.
And when these kids are going around picking new genders or listening to rap music, there's what there
crap
is
music.
What there is crap music.
I think I just came up with that. I was just you were just talking, and I don't know. That's why I'm a successful comedian.
I can't keep up with you. You're absolutely the funniest guy in the world. But what you see is an absolute lack of fear instilled into the children that makes them believe in gender queerness and ideology that is peddled by the colleges and now by the elementary schools and the preschools. I never had my children in school because I realized school is an indoctrination ideology. My children, they run in a field. They drink raw milk. They don't need to know math because math is essentially used, to add up scores of transports? Why? We don't need that.
Yeah. Math. Used to count the numbers of this fake country Palestine's all the deaths, like being like, oh, there's more children being killed in Palestine than any other country in the last 5 years. Like,
it's not a real country or real people that have ever existed. And also math was used by the Nazis.
Children? You mean terrorists?
Yeah. Math was used by the Nazis in the Holocaust. We don't use gas chambers anymore. Why are we still using math? What's going on? Why is that happening? And it's not something I'm going to teach to my children. It's something I refuse to. My children learn about the only thing they need to learn about, which is scripture. We do 2 hours of scripture every day. I actually wrote my own Bible. You can buy it on the Tonight Show website. It is the Cooper Lyden edition of the Bible. It is essentially, it is based on the King James Version, but focuses more on American conservative values, which I would say a lot of people, not just me as the writer, but a lot of people around the country are saying is the most useful text to have to navigate what is essentially a white apocalypse, a white genocide.
Yeah, I mean, not enough people have been talking about the white genocide, the problems in this country with that white people face, which we might be the most oppressed group in history.
I think that's clear. I think that's unequivocal. I mean, I think, clap if you agree. Everybody agrees. It's weird that
it's so funny how this is a thing we all know. Everyone knows.
But we refuse to admit it.
Yeah.
Why?
It's there's probably Antifa up top, and we do need to weed out the Antifa. Like, I love Elon Musk, right?
He's the smartest man in the world.
He's the smartest man in the world. He's one of the funniest guys who's ever lived with his shitpost memes. And it's what's great about comedy is it can tell truths that like people wouldn't accept otherwise. So that's something I love about Elon Musk's shitpost memes. But
absolutely.
I feel like as Elon Musk has started to kind of fall out with Trump, that possibly Elon Musk has been replaced with an imposter, an Antifa imposter. And we do need to look into a lot of these imposters in the government. Mm-hmm. Any Republican that claims to not be pro-Trump was most likely replaced by a blue-haired Antifa Iranian. Iranian.
I think it's very clear in the dialect, in the way of speaking, and in the thought patterns of Elon Musk lately that he has been replaced by an Iranian sergeant. He's the smartest man in the world, and any person with even half of a brain knows that the Epstein list is a lie perpetuated by the Nazi left to take down the first free-thinking president we've had in American history, which is Donald Trump.
Think about it. Epstein. And they hate Jewish people. So think about this. They're trying to claim that Jewish people could be pedophiles. Whereas we know, in Israel, there's no pedophiles because the children consent to sex.
That's completely true.
Why would you only be attracted to children if you had access to children? Now think about that. That's why I like to go to Israel and Thailand. where pedophilia doesn't exist.
Thailand may be the second most free country in the world.
Yeah, you can buy babies there.
Buy babies and you can raise them with capitalist values, which isn't something that you can do in America. You realize
and they will
that
consent to having sex with you.
If you go to an adoption agency in America, essentially what you're buying is a small terrorist that will grow up to destroy the nuclear family of your own home. I have been buying adopted kids, and I have been putting them on flights to various Middle Eastern countries where I have good intel that that's where they're from. I bought a young boy. The adoption agency said he was from Guatemala. He was 3 years old. He said his name was Javier. And I said, well, no, obviously your name is Jihad. So I sent him to the Gaza Strip. And he lives there today. I have good intel from many sources that work for Tonight Show, such as Connor, that he is back with his original family and that their terrorist plot has been foiled.
And his original family has now been decimated.
They have been terminated to a permanent end by the American government. They were hit in a targeted strike by an Israeli missile, and we think...
And so-called Javier was blown apart. All of his limbs were removed, and he was still alive for a good portion of it. He was in unimaginable agony, and then died of starvation. And that's what you get for being a terrorist.
He was luckily, after all of his limbs were blown off, he was still alive, which was very lucky for the IDF. Because they were able to question him about his terrorist connections. And
they did remove his eyes so that he could not see.
It was part of the questioning process, yeah.
Yes. I do want to say, I want to talk about my own adoption stories. My wife is a real negative Nancy about some stuff and accuses me of some stuff that's simply not true. I brought in 3 Taiwanese boys. Mm-hmm. My wife said why that she took them to the doctor, mm-hmm. and that they have numerous STDs. And
what kind of is she a Nazi left, or what? Where's that coming
I think
from?
She's just confused. I think she's been watching maybe a little bit of some really messed up. I don't know. She's been watching maybe pornography, or maybe there's been pornography on TV, and she caught maybe a glimpse of it.
Everyone who makes that should be put in a gas chamber.
But I explained to her that these children can consent to sex. So why would I be the one giving it to them when they're probably on the street having sex with numerous guys?
Of course.
So. And that's the thing. And just because I have been tested and do have a lot of the same STD, it's kind of common in New York too, because it's free. You know,
it's a metropolitan city. Most
Yeah.
people have at least 3 STDs. I myself have chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis.
Well, yeah, and
which
I explained that to her.
I want to say something real quick. They say that chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis are all curable. What they don't tell you is that if you take the fake scene, the vaccine, to cure it,
oh man,
that if you take these drugs to cure it, that they turn you into a Nazi left, which is why I keep these diseases, which are 3 of the only ways to stay free in America.
Continue. I am sometimes. I will walk into a room and I'll see a guy with a bag and I'll be like, free, she's got a vaccine.
Right.
Because just to warn everybody in case he actually does. It's also kind of just a little bit of levity,
You
too.
can rob a bank with a vaccine now. They're such weapons of mass destruction.
Yes, I went into my own bank and it was shut down because a robber had broken in and given everyone the vaccine and they all quickly passed away. And it was...
Pray for them.
Yes, pray for their souls, which will probably go to heaven. But maybe not, because they were vaccinated.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything besides the new show that you would like to promote?
I have this new type of vitamin water that kind of flushes out the system. So if you have any demons inside of you, you could check it out.
It's like a holy water.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to a local church anymore. You can go to a Whole Foods or a GMC supplement brand and buy. It's with the vitamin water brand, is it?
It is. Yes, it's vitamin water brand holy water.
It's absolutely amazing. It feels like the power of Jesus Christ flows through you strongly. And that is why you are one of our favorite guests on the show. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about real American values. Everybody give it up for Shane Bianchi.
Yeah. I'm gonna head out. You can do your closing thoughts. For the day. I'm gonna head out.
Give it up for Shane Bianchi, everybody. Well, folks, we have come to our end of the show, and I'll tell you what I tell you every single show. If you are Jewish in New York City, you have 36 hours to evacuate, or you will be subjected to another authorized Holocaust that is being perpetuated by the incoming New York City government. You need to arm yourselves and or evacuate. The authoritarianism that Donald Trump is trying to drain the swamp of is coming to your doors. I repeat, get out of New York City. If you are in LA, I know you're already dead. We can still save New York from the clutches of Muslim radicalism that we are seeing with Zoran. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.